We begin with the death of Gene Wilder, news of his passing, and an occasion to remember how much he made us laugh. A beloved actor made famous from his roles in the movies Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles has passed away. This afternoon, we're learning more about the death of Gene Wilder. We all remember Gene Wilder for his unforgettable roles in Willy Wonka and The Chocolate Factory and Young Frankenstein. But what really happened behind the scenes of his legendary career? Why did Gene's wife remain silent for so long after his passing? And what revelations does she finally share about their life together? But he became a star playing the mad scientist in the 1974 spoof, Young Frankenstein. And then there's Gene Wilder, the Willy Wonka, for all time. The answers to these questions will reveal a side of Gene Wilder that the public has never seen before. Early life. Gene Wilder, the actor who brought us so many laughs as Willy Wonka and Dr. Frankenstein, was born Jerome Silberman in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, back in 1933. His parents, Gene and William, were Jewish immigrants from Russia. His dad made and sold fun little things like toys and gadgets. When Gene was just 8 years old, his mom got really sick with a heart condition called rheumatic fever. The doctor told little Gene to try and make his mom laugh to help her get better. This sparked Gene's interest in acting as he found joy in bringing smiles to his mom's face. When Gene was 11, he saw his sister perform in a play, and he was hooked. He wanted to be an actor too. He even asked his sister's acting teacher if he could be his student. The teacher told him to come back when he was 13, and Gene did just that. He called the teacher on his 13th birthday, and the teacher agreed to take him on as a student. Gene studied acting for 2 years, learning all sorts of techniques and skills that would help him later in his career. But journey to becoming a beloved actor wasn't always easy. His mom, Jean Silberman, noticed that he wasn't reaching his full potential in Wisconsin, so she sent him to a military school called Black Fox in Hollywood. However, this decision turned out to be a painful experience for young Gene. At Black Fox, Gene was bullied and even sexually assaulted by other students because he was the only Jewish boy there. After a short and unhappy stay at Black Fox, Gene returned to Milwaukee, where he found comfort and solace in the local theater community. He performed in front of a paying audience for the first time when he was 15, playing Balfour. He went on to study communication and theater arts at the University of Iowa, where he joined the Alpha Epsilon Pi fraternity. College was a time of exploration and growth for Gene as he continued to develop his acting skills and learn about the world around him. After graduating from Iowa in 1955, Gene's thirst for knowledge led him to the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School in England. There, he immersed himself in the study of acting and even excelled in fencing, becoming the first freshman to win the all-school fencing championship. It was clear that Gene was a talented and dedicated student, always eager to learn and improve. However, after 6 months at Bristol, Gene realized that he wanted to study a different acting method called Stanislavski's system. So he returned to the United States, moving in with his sister and her family in Queens, New York. He enrolled at HB Studio, a renowned acting school, where he continued to hone his craft and prepare for a career in the entertainment industry. Time in Army. In 1956, even though he was a rising star in the theater world, Gene Wilder got drafted into the Army. After training, he was assigned to the Medical Corps and sent to Texas to learn how to be a paramedic. Luckily, he got to choose where he wanted to work, and he picked a hospital near New York City so he could keep taking acting classes. He spent his time in the Army helping out in the hospital's Department of Psychiatry and Neurology, taking care of soldiers who needed mental health help. But during his time in the Army, Gene experienced a great loss. His mom, Jean, passed away from cancer. It was a difficult time for him, but he continued to serve his country and pursue his passion for acting. After finishing his military service in 1958, Gene went back to New York City. He got a scholarship to a famous acting school called HB Studio, which allowed him to focus on his studies full-time. To pay for everything else, he had to work some odd jobs like driving a fancy car for rich people and teaching fencing. He was determined to make it as an actor, even if it meant working multiple jobs to support himself. Early career. When Gene turned 26, he realized that the name Jerry Silberman just didn't sound like a movie star name. So he decided to change it to something a bit more catchy, Gene Wilder. He picked Gene because he liked a character with that name in a book, and Wilder as a tribute to the famous playwright Thornton Wilder. With his new name, Gene started getting more acting jobs both on Broadway and in smaller theaters. It was during a play called Mother Courage and Her Children that he met a famous actress named Anne Bancroft. She introduced Gene to her boyfriend, Mel Brooks, who had become a super important person in Gene's career. Gene and Mel hit it off right away, and Mel even promised to cast Gene in his next movie, The Producers. But before that happened, Gene got a small part in the movie Bonnie and Clyde in 1977. This was his first time acting in a movie, but it was just the beginning of his big screen adventures. A year later, Gene got his big break in The Producers playing a nervous accountant named Leo Bloom. The movie wasn't a huge hit when it came out, but Gene's performance was so good that he got nominated for an Academy Award. After that, everyone wanted to work with Gene Wilder. Rise to stardom. In 1969, Gene Wilder moved to Paris for a bit to star in a comedy film called Start the Revolution Without Me. It was a funny movie set during the French Revolution, and Gene had a blast making it. When filming wrapped up, he returned to New York City eager for his next project. That's when he stumbled upon the script for Quaxer Fortune Has a Cousin in the Bronx. He loved it so much that he immediately called up Sidney Glazier, the producer of The Producers, to tell him about it. Together they started looking for the perfect director to bring the movie to life. They originally wanted Jean Renoir, a famous director, but he was too busy. So they ended up hiring Waris Hussein, a talented director from Britain. The movie was filmed in Ireland with Margot Kidder playing opposite Gene. It was a fun experience, and Gene's performance was as charming and hilarious as ever. But Gene's biggest breakthrough was yet to come. In 1971, he auditioned for the role of Willy Wonka in the movie adaptation of Roald Dahl's beloved book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The director, Mel Stewart, was so impressed with Gene's audition that he offered him the role on the spot. It was a dream come true for Gene, and he knew it was a special opportunity. However, the movie wasn't a huge hit when it first came out. Some people thought it was a bit strange and didn't understand its quirky humor. But even though it wasn't a box office smash, critics like Roger Ebert loved it and compared it to The Wizard of Oz. Over time, the movie gained a huge following and became a beloved classic, with people of all ages falling in love with Gene Wilder's unforgettable portrayal of Willy Wonka. Gene's next few movies weren't as Wonka, but he didn't give up. He kept looking for the right project, hoping to find another hit. That opportunity came when Woody Allen offered him a role in his comedy film, Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex, but were afraid to ask. Gene accepted, and the movie turned out to be a huge success, making a ton of money and putting Gene back on the map as a comedic genius. After finding success with Everything You Always Wanted to Know About Sex, Gene Wilder had a brilliant idea for a new movie. He called it Young Frankenstein, and it was going to be a funny take on the classic monster story. He told his friend Mel Brooks about it, but Mel didn't seem too excited at first. A few months later, Gene's agent called him up and asked if he had any ideas for a movie that could star two of his new clients, Peter Boyle and Marty Feldman. Gene had just seen Marty Feldman on TV and thought he'd be perfect for a scene at a train station in Transylvania, where a character named Igor meets Dr. Frankenstein for the first time. He offered another role as the Fox in a movie based on the book The Little Prince. But before he could start filming, Mel Brooks called him again and offered him the role of the Waco Kid in Blazing Saddles. Gene quickly filmed his scenes for Blazing Saddles and then rushed off to London to start working on The Little Prince. Talk about a busy schedule. When the script for Young Frankenstein was finished, Jean Mel and the producer Michael Gruskoff tried to sell it to Columbia Pictures, but they couldn't agree on how much money to spend on the movie, so they went with 20th Century Fox instead. Jean and Mel had to sign 5-year brother. Marty Feldman and Madeline Kahn agreed to be in it, and Jean started writing the script for what would become his first movie as a director, The Adventure of Sherlock Holmes' smarter brother. It was clear that Gene Wilder was a creative powerhouse with one brilliant idea after another. Films with Richard Pryor. In 1975, Gene Wilder's agent sent him a script for a movie called Super Chief. Gene liked the idea, but thought it needed a special touch to make it really funny. He suggested that the only person who could make the movie hilarious without being offensive was Richard Pryor, a super talented comedian known for his quick wit and sharp humor. Pryor agreed to do the movie, which was renamed Silver Streak. It was the first time Gene and Richard worked together, and they became the first successful interracial comedy duo in Hollywood. Talk about breaking barriers. While filming Silver Streak, Gene got another idea for a movie. It was inspired by a film by the famous Italian director Federico Fellini. Gene wrote, produced, and even directed this new movie called The World's Greatest Lover. But even though he put his heart and soul into it, the movie wasn't a hit with critics. It just goes to show that even the best comedians can have a flop sometimes. Gene's next project was a Western comedy called The Frisco Kid, which was originally supposed to star John Wayne. But John Wayne dropped out, and a young actor named Harrison Ford got the role instead. This turned out to be a big break for Harrison Ford, who later became a huge star in movies like Star Wars and Indiana Jones. But let's get back to Gene and Richard. They were a match made in comedy heaven. Sidney Poitier, the famous actor and director, once said that when you put Gene and Richard together, they create a special kind of magic. And he was right. Their next movie together, Stir Crazy, was a huge hit all over the world. People loved their hilarious antics and how well they worked together on screen. Filming Stir Crazy wasn't always easy, though. Richard Pryor was going through a tough time with drug addiction, which made things difficult on set. But despite the challenges, the movie turned out to be a huge success, and it's still considered one of the funniest movies ever made. Gene Wilder's friendship with Sidney Poitier led to an exciting new project, a comedy called Hanky Panky, where Gene met the love of his life, Gilda Radner. This sparked a creative partnership between Gene and Gilda as they worked together on several projects throughout the 1980s. After Hanky Panky, Gene directed his third film, The Woman in Red, starring himself, Gilda, and Kelly LeBrock. While the movie wasn't a huge hit with critics, it did win an Oscar for Best Original Song, thanks to Stevie Wonder's catchy tune, I Just Called to Say I Love You. Gene and Gilda's next project together, Haunted Honeymoon, also didn't do so well with audiences. It seemed like they were having a bit of bad luck with their movies, but that didn't stop them from trying. The studio TriStar Pictures wanted another movie starring Gene and Richard Pryor, and Gene agreed to do it, but only if he could change the script. The studio said yes, and they made See No Evil, Hear No Evil, which came out in 1989. Critics didn't love the movie, saying the script was silly, but they still thought Gene and Richard were great, along with another actor named Kevin Spacey. Later career Gene Wilder continued to make us laugh throughout the 1990s, starring in the romantic comedy Funny About Love in 1990. He then reunited with his comedic partner Richard Pryor for one last movie, Another You, in 1991. Sadly, it was clear in this film that Richard Pryor was struggling with a serious illness. This marked the end of their iconic duo, and also Gene's final appearance in a major movie. His last two movies didn't do so well, but that didn't stop Gene from getting recognized for his amazing work. In 1991, he was honored with a special place in the Wisconsin Performing Arts Hall of Fame, right in his hometown of Milwaukee. It was a big deal, showing how much people loved and appreciated his talent. Even though he wasn't making movies anymore, Gene didn't disappear completely. In 1994, he starred in a sitcom called Something Wilder, where he played a dad with a crazy family. But the show didn't last long, and Gene decided to take a break from TV for a bit. He returned to the small screen in 1999, appearing in 3 TV movies. One was a version of Alice in Wonderland, and the other 2 were mysteries where he played a theater director who became a detective. It was a fun change of pace for Gene, and he even helped write the scripts for the mystery movies. A few years later, Gene made a guest appearance on the popular sitcom Will and Grace. He played Mr. Stein, the boss of one of the main characters, and he was hilarious. His performance was so good that he even won an Emmy Award for it. That's like getting a gold medal for being funny on TV. After that, Gene decided to focus on other things he loved, like writing books and painting. He wrote a memoir and several novels, and he also created beautiful paintings that he shared with the world. Even though he wasn't acting anymore, he was still expressing his creativity in new and exciting ways. Gene Wilder's heart, just like his comedic talent, was big and full of love. He was married 4 times, each marriage bringing its own joys and challenges to his life. His first love was Mary Mercier, a fellow acting student he met in New York. They married in 1960, but their busy schedules and long periods apart eventually led to their divorce in 1965. Just a few months later, Gene started dating Mary Joan Schutz, a friend of his sister. Mary Joan had a daughter from a previous marriage, and when the little girl started calling Gene Dad, he knew he wanted to be a part of their lives. He married Mary Joan in 1967 and adopted her daughter Catherine, but after 7 years, their marriage ended in divorce. Gene's most famous relationship was with Gilda Radner, the hilarious comedian from Saturday Night Live. Their story began in 1982 while filming the movie Hanky Panky. Gene, already a well-established actor, was smitten with the talented Gilda, who was 13 years younger than him. They quickly became close friends, and their connection deepened into love. Despite being married to someone else, Gilda couldn't deny her feelings for Gene and eventually divorced her husband. In 1984, Gene and Gilda tied the knot in a secret ceremony. They were happy and in love, living in a beautiful old house where Gene would later spend his final days writing books and promoting cancer awareness. But their dream of having children together was never realized. Gilda suffered 2 miscarriages, and doctors couldn't figure out why. They told her she was infertile, a devastating blow for the couple who longed for a family. During this time, Gilda started experiencing strange symptoms like fatigue, bloating, and uncontrollable shaking in her legs. At first, doctors thought it was a virus, but her condition worsened. She even struggled to button her pants due to the bloating. Despite numerous tests and consultations, no doctor could pinpoint the problem. Gilda's symptoms continued to worsen, and she was eventually diagnosed with ovarian cancer in October 1986. The tumor was the size of a grapefruit, and she had to undergo a hysterectomy and chemotherapy. It was a tough battle, but she went into remission in 1988, giving the couple a brief respite from the illness. Sadly, the cancer returned in 1989, and Gilda passed away in May at the young age of 42. Gene was devastated by her death, and in the years that followed, he dedicated himself to raising awareness about ovarian cancer and helping other people affected by the disease. Gene didn't start dating again for a long time after Gilda's death. He was heartbroken and unsure if he would ever find love again. But about a year later, he decided to call Karen Boyer, a speech therapist he had met while preparing for his role in the movie See No Evil, Hear No Evil. Their connection was instant, and they started dating. They eventually got married in a private ceremony at Gene's Connecticut home in 1991. They lived a quiet life together, enjoying each other's company and pursuing their creative passions. The final curtain, Gene Wilder lived a long and happy life, but sadly he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease 3 years before his passing in 2016. He was 83 years old when he died at his home in Connecticut, surrounded by the love of his family. In a touching new documentary called Remembering Gene Wilder, Karen Boyer, Gene's wife shared the last words he spoke to her before he passed away in 2016. It was a sweet and simple moment, just like the man himself. They were lying in bed together, listening to Ella Fitzgerald sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, when Gene suddenly sat up and said, "I trust you." Then he uttered the words, "Every wife longs to hear I love you." Those were the last words he ever spoke. It's a poignant reminder of the love they shared, a love that lasted through thick and thin. Karen described Gene as the best husband anyone could ask for, a true testament to their deep and enduring bond. Sadly, Gene's final years were marked by a battle with Alzheimer's disease, a heartbreaking illness that slowly steals away memories and cognitive abilities. Karen admitted that Gene never truly accepted his diagnosis, perhaps because the disease had already affected his memory. It must have been devastating for Karen to watch her beloved husband slip away, but she remained strong and supportive, always putting on a brave face for him. Despite the challenges of Alzheimer's, Karen cherishes the love they shared. To love and be loved is the best gift anyone could ask for, and we had that she shared. His friends and colleagues were heartbroken by his passing. Mel Brooks, a famous comedian and director who worked with Gene on many movies, said that he was still reeling from the loss. He couldn't believe that Gene was gone, and he would miss him dearly. Even the Oscars honored Gene Wilder by including him in their special In Memoriam montage in 2017. It was a way to celebrate his incredible career and his impact on the world of cinema.